Hello, my name is Danica and welcome to The World's Hardest Game, a year in summary 2022, a series started by HS Blue which looks back on the achievements of the community each year, and boy is there a lot to look at. It cannot be overstated how much Maximum impacted the community this year. Maximum is a YouTuber who makes videos about flash game speedrunning, and he is responsible for much of the boom in activity in 2022. When he released a video on the world record history of the World's Hardest Game 1 on November 6th, it attracted over 1 million views and hundreds of new players joined the Discord server. It has now become his most popular video, helping him surpass 100,000 subscribers. Thanks to this, the list of accomplishments I have to share with you today is quite long, so sit back, relax, and enjoy. At the start of the year, there were 10 players who had beaten the World's Hardest Game 1 in under 6 minutes. This is a major milestone for any World's Hardest Game 1 runner, as it is the lowest minute barrier that is considered humanly possible. On the 16th of June, VideoCake became the 11th person to have a sub-6 time, beating the game in 5 minutes and 54 seconds. In the following month, Raflik became the 12th person to achieve sub-6 with a time of 5 minutes and 42 seconds. Then, after Maximum published his video, the hunger for World's Hardest Game speedrunning was reignited. On November 8th, Vowz improved his PB to 5:38, putting him in 6th place. GGG 502 was the 13th person to claim a sub-6 time, setting a 5:57 on November 16th. On the 22nd, Dpred became the 14th sub-6er with a time of 5:56. And 2 days later, David Konkow joined the club with a 5:58. There were now 15 people with sub-6 times. The night of December 4th and 5th will be remembered as one of the most exciting nights in World's Hardest Game history. It started with some small races between a handful of runners, but it soon turned into a large voice chat with up to 7 runners playing at a time. The first big event was a PB by me of 5 minutes and 30 seconds. But in the very same race, eclipsed by HS Blue, who set a 5:29. Shortly afterwards, Frames set an astonishing PB of 5:30 himself. The reason this was so surprising is because his previous PB was 6:17. He had jumped a full 47 seconds and set his time during a live race, becoming the 16th person to get a sub-6. At this point, Frames and I both had a 5:30. And I was determined to break the tie. After a few more runs, I set a 5:28, tying for 3rd place with Beta TR. This tie would soon turn into a 3-way tie, as that Raisin though got a 5:28 as well just a few hours later. It was partly as a result of this 3-way tie that the decision was made to add milliseconds for times below 6 minutes, revealing that in fact Raisin was 3rd, Beta was 4th, and I was 5th. The activity continued in the following days, with Dimrom achieving a 5:50 on the 7th of December, the 17th sub-6, and Inaqua achieving a 5:47 on the 10th of December, the 18th sub-6. In this time, David Konkow had been steadily improving his PB, climbing the ranks, and eventually claimed a 3rd place with a 5:26.333, which was also set on the 10th of December. This was a very impressive run, including the level 8 wall clip, 3 weaves in level 10, and the frame perfect at the beginning of level 29, all performed correctly in a completely deathless run. The only mistake David made was missing Taz 23, losing him 3 seconds. Just 3 days later, that Raisin though improved his own PB just enough to slide in front of David, claiming 3rd place for himself with a 5:26.200. Raisin also did 3 weaves on level 10 and the frame perfect start on level 29. He missed the level 8 wall clip, but he got the Taz cycle on level 23. Overall, with some small time saves and losses in other levels, he finished 4 frames ahead of David. The most impressive thing about this run is that despite dying once at the start of level 12, Raisin managed to recover and catch up to the standard cycle, and even gained half a second over David by using the faster finish. The decision to include milliseconds had already proven useful, as David and Raisin both held a 5:26, but on the same day, a tie was created that couldn't be split. Videocake improved his own PB to a 5:28.466, tying Beta TR's run from 2021 to the exact frame. As far as I know, this is the only time in World's Hardest Game history that 2 runs have been tied to the frame. At the end of the year, both runners stood in 5th place, a true tie. If you thought that was the last of the full game runs, you'd be wrong. The 19th person to achieve sub 6 was Gambus, who submitted a 5:41 on December 18th. And the next day, Deep Red moved into 10th place with a time of 5 minutes and 35 seconds. And finally, the 20th person to beat the game in less than 6 minutes was the Egglet, narrowly scraping in with a time of 5:58. Here are the standings at the end of 2022. But since the turn of the year, even more PBs have been set, so be sure to check the speedrun leaderboards for the most up-to-date times. In total, 28 new runners joined the leaderboard, and 10 players set their first sub 6. 6 existing runners improved their PBs, and 3 of those were sub 6 times. It is worth noting that in the entire year, no one even got close to Aaron's 5:14, which has now been the world record for 2.5 years. HS Blue's 5:23 from 2019 also stands untouched in second place. Although, as the community edges ever closer, it seems inevitable that both of these times will be challenged in the near future. As well as Maximum's video, another factor that accelerated the improvements in World's Hardest Game times were enhanced speedrunning tools. In particular, I made a mod in late November that displayed the window resolution on screen. This is critical information for any top-level speedrunner, since many of the fastest routes are resolution dependent, meaning they only work at certain screen sizes. This mod, which was built on top of Pazula's original speedrun mod from 2018, was further developed by myself and the Me, now including save states and many other useful features. The Me also made several developments to Pazula's Taz mod, making it much easier to use and more featureful. These tools definitely aided runners in their pursuit of full game PBs, but their biggest impact was in tearing down some long-standing individual level times and Taz times, with the theoretical best Taz being reduced by a whopping 4 seconds over the course of the year. On November 30th, HS Blue and Stevo discovered that 3.25 is possible on level 1, saving 1 frame. This was made possible by using a deeper wall clip at the beginning of the level, which is only possible on certain resolutions. The advent of this discovery broke the 36-way tie for first place, and within 24 hours 9 people had achieved 325. By the end of the year, 13 people stood tied for first. On December 7th, Vals became the first person to perform Taz 15, tied on the same day by HS Blue, GGG 502, and Frames. This was based on Stevo's 808 from his 457 Taz from 2019. For more than 3 years, this time, which requires many precise wall clips and enemy clips, was considered humanly impossible. But, with some tweaks to the route and a great deal of dedication, the 8.08 was finally matched by human players. Hutchiman's 521 on level 18, which had stood as an untied world record for more than 3 years, was finally matched by Vals on December 11th, and then HS Blue on December 21st. There is still some potential to save up to 5 more frames, but the quick and precise fingerwork required for this level is like none other. There is a reason Hatchiman's time stood untied for so long. This is one of the hardest ILs in the game. Congratulations to HS Blue and Vals. When Stevo released his Taz speedrun in 2019, it included a mind-boggling completion of level 20 that seemed to defy all known logic and reason. This route, known as Taz 20, was almost 2 seconds faster than the IL record, and for many years it was the primary reason why the RTA sum always stood 2 seconds behind the TAS time. Because the route required so many frame-perfect movements and precise wall clips, it was long considered humanly impossible. However, on December the 28th, Gamvis unequivocally disproved this theory, becoming the first person to achieve TAS 20 with a time of 10:25, beating the previous record of 12:14 by frames that had stood for almost 3 years. Although he had completed the route, Gamvis had only just made it in front of the enemies at the end, clocking in 6 frames behind Steve-O's TAS. And, on the last day of the year, Vowles would claim the record, beating Gamvis by 3 frames, with a 10:22. An honorary mention goes to the me, who discovered a further time save and executed it a few days into the new year, beating Steve-O's TAS by 8 frames. On December 15th, Steve-O shared a TAS video showing a 9:25 route for level 27, 7 frames faster than the previous TAS. This got other players excited, and within just a few hours the time had been lowered to a 9:19. A week later, Frames discovered one more frame that could be saved. Vowles immediately put this information to use, achieving a 9:18 on the same day, later tied by HS Blue. Around the same time, a critical discovery was made in level 28. On December 15th, Vowles posted a video showing a possible enemy clip at the beginning of level 28. Shortly after, he created a TAS route using the clip and then executed the route in real time. The time was 9 seconds and 11 frames, almost a full second faster than the previous route. But it wouldn't stop there. Frames shared a theory he had about a sub-9 time. He tried using TAS tools to achieve it, but he was off the cycle by 1 frame. On December 21st, Vowles turned Frames' theory into reality, sharing an 8.28 TAS, and replicated it the next day in real time, later tied by HS Blue. You may have heard me say, tied by HS Blue, quite a bit in the last few minutes. That's because HS Blue was on a mission to get the world record in all 30 levels at once, colloquially known as 30 out of 30. He had held 30 out of 30 back in 2019, but since then, many of his ILs had been beaten. But this year, when HS Blue returned to the game, he was quick to tie world records whenever there was a new development. However, he still didn't have them all, and he wasn't the only player with a lot of world records. It was Vowles who achieved the 30 out of 30 first, on December the 19th, closely followed by HS Blue on December the 21st. I cannot stress enough how difficult 30 out of 30 is. All of the ILs in the World's Hardest Game 1 are optimized to the frame, many of these routes taking several hours to achieve. HS Blue himself said he spent over 30 hours grinding level 18. At the turn of the year, Vowles was the only player with 30 out of 30, since he held the level 20 untied world record. However, since the me claimed this record shortly into the new year, no player holds 30 out of 30 as of the time of recording. Perhaps the most surprising discovery all year was the hidden coin in level 9. I have an entire video dedicated to this, so if you don't know what I'm talking about, be sure to check that out. As a result of some of these discoveries, GGG 502 made a new TAS of the World's Hardest Game on the 6th of December, clocking in at 4:55 and 19 frames. However, some of the time saves I have mentioned were not discovered until after this date, and the theoretical TAS time is currently 4:53.07. As well as improvements to the speedrun and TAS mods, several other new mods were made this year. Here are some of my favourites. Also, the me added TAS tools to the backwards mod and the easiest mod. That is all I have to say about the Flash version of the World's Hardest Game 1. But I have to stop and mention that the HTML5 record was broken this year. HS Blue's deathless 1030 stood for almost 3 years, bested by TV Robot on the 14th of June with a 10:28. TV Robot went on to improve their time, setting a 10:01 2 weeks later, and then a 9:55 in October. The HTML5 version of the game has much stricter collision, making this run extra impressive. In April, I tackled the World's Hardest Game 2.1, an extended version of the game that has 10 bonus levels. For almost 3 years, Jacob Meisner was the only person on this leaderboard. Because the game is very similar to the World's Hardest Game 2, I was able to transfer most of my skills, and I set a new world record of 16:18. Although most of the levels are the same, a lot of the new levels are quite a bit harder and take some time to learn. Therefore, my time is still a long way from the best possible time that could be set in this game. With better routes and more practice, several minutes could be saved. Another category that received some attention this year was the World's Hardest Game 2 tutorial. This consists of beating the 4-level tutorial that can be accessed from the main menu. On December 11th, Dimrom claimed the tutorial world record with a 32.500, beating the previous record by 1 frame. He went on to improve his record 3 more times, culminating in a 32.066 set on December the 21st. Some of this time save resulted in a new route for level 4, which involved doing a precise wall clip here, which allows the player to just make it to the other side while collecting the coin. The other time save was from performing level 2 and level 3 more optimally. Since the turn of the year, an even faster route for level 4 has been found, and the record lowered even further. Check the speedrun leaderboards for the most up-to-date information. Now to the main leaderboards. 2 new runners joined the World's Hardest Game 2 leaderboards this year. In November, S. Borealis set a time of 18 minutes and 51 seconds, and in December, the Egglet achieved a time of 29 minutes and 33 seconds. Also, Vals improved his time to a 14:31, becoming the 3rd person to breach the 15-minute barrier. Vals suffered several deaths in level 25 and level 36, as well as some other levels, which caused him to lose a lot of time, but he didn't die in level 19 and had only 1 death in level 18, making for a good run overall. Excitement stirred in the community when Maximum, shortly after releasing his World's Hardest Game 1 video, announced a bounty of $500 to the first person to complete the World's Hardest Game 2 with 0 deaths, which had never been done before, and it had to be a world record too. Immediately, I got excited by the idea. I had attempted deathless runs before in 2019, but I gave up quickly after getting frustrated with level 18. With a monetary incentive to sweeten the deal, I felt much more motivated to return to the challenge and this time conquer it, once and for all. And, after 15 hours of live streamed attempts, yes! Yes! Let's go! I won the bounty, setting a new world record of 11:55. At the time of recording, there is still a $250 bounty available for the next person to beat the game deathless, and it doesn't have to be a world record. Check the description for details. You might think that a deathless run must be perfect, but far from it. Not only did I lose several seconds in level 19, but I also used slower, safer routes in some levels to maximize my consistency. Who would be the player to highlight my shortcomings? Raflik. You might remember Raflik from the World's Hardest Game 1 section, and soon you'll hear about what he did in the World's Hardest Game 3. Raflik joined the Discord server in January 2022, and in just 1 year has already brought much innovation and passion to the community. After I achieved my 11:55, Raflik set out to beat my world record. Eventually, he did it, setting an 11:46 on the 27th of December. Although Raflik had 7 deaths, he was able to beat my time by 9 seconds since he used faster strategies in many levels, most notably level 26, level 27, level 31, level 36, and level 48. This is a strong time, but there is still plenty of time that can be saved. Congratulations to Raflik, and I look forward to seeing where the record goes in the future. The World's Hardest Game 3 Any% leaderboards were reawoken in 2022. My long-standing world record of 37:35 that had remained untouched throughout 2020 and 2021 was finally toppled. During February, I improved the world record twice in my Quadfecta live streams. On the 13th, I set a 36:38, and on the 26th, I set a 34:42. One thing that helped me immensely in these runs was my recent work on level 5, which had culminated in me achieving the first deathless completion of level 5 in my individual level record of 12:31. Having honed my skills in level 5 allowed me to achieve the second ever deathless level 5 in this run. Also in February, Videocake joined the leaderboards with a time of 59 minutes and 41 seconds, beating Curab's legacy time from 2014 and surpassing the infamous hour barrier. But Videocake didn't stop there. He went on to improve his time, becoming the second person to get a time below 40 minutes, and eventually lowering his PB to 37:53 on the 20th of April. But Videocake was not the only player to join the World's Hardest Game 3 leaderboards. Around the same time, another player had joined and set his sights on the World's Hardest Game 3 world record. Raflik set his first sub-hour time in April and was rapidly improving, becoming the third person to break the 40-minute barrier just a day after Videocake did. Raflik's time of 39:58, which could only be called sub-40 by 2 seconds, showed a more aggressive approach to the game than any other World's Hardest Game 3 runner had ever used. Raflik was determined to learn the fastest feasible routes, even if they were much harder than the conventional routes that Videocake and I had been using. With further practice and dedication, Raflik set his first world record with a time of 32 minutes and 58 seconds on the 13th of May. This was an impressive run, showcasing many new routes that Raflik had developed himself. His early levels were very clean, with no deaths in level 1 or 2, and only 2 deaths in level 3, but his performance in levels 4 and 5 were not so polished, resulting in many unnecessary deaths. On June the 1st, I reclaimed the world record with a time of 32 minutes and 40 seconds. This run was unremarkable in the first 4 levels, entering level 5 more than a minute behind Raflik. However, I was able to pull ahead in level 5 by not making as many mistakes as Raflik. Mistakes in level 5 are generally more costly than the other levels, since the checkpoints have spread further apart. I was able to execute the 5B3 key clip, 5D1, and the grey all without any deaths, pulling ahead of Raflik in the final stretch by 18 seconds. Raflik responded 2 days later with a much more sizable improvement. His new world record was 32 minutes and 5 seconds. Again, his first 3 levels were strong, but level 4 and 5 were not up to the same standard. As the record got lower, excitement began about the possibility of a sub-30 time, but it would require 2 things. It was time to improve level 4 and 5. When I sat down to grind level 4, the world record was 9:25 with 8 deaths. For many years, I had avoided optimizing level 4 because I found 4E5 and 4B4 to be very painful rooms, especially 4B4, which is regarded by many as the hardest room in the entire game. But this time, more determined than ever, I sat down to improve my time. Before long, I set the first sub-9 time, and after a few days of intense practice, I set a 7:59, the first sub-8 of level 4, including the first ever deathless completion of 4B4. Despite my stubborn belief that it was impossible to master 4B4, I found my death count being consistently lower than it used to before. Equipped with my better fluency on level 4, I went on to set several new world records, including lowering my level 4 time to 7:57 in one of my attempts. The record now stood at 30 minutes and 35 seconds, 7 minutes faster than my 2019 time, all in a matter of months. If just one more minute could be saved, sub 30 would become reality. Now it was time to master level 5. Although I had set a deathless level 5 at the start of the year, this run used quite conservative strategies, and there was still a lot of room for improvement. On June 22nd, I shaved almost a minute off the previous world record, setting an 11:37. The time save came from delaying the key in 5C3, a reroute discovered by Raflik. Faster routes on 5A2 and 5A3, and some other small optimizations. Apart from the joy of speedrunning level 5 itself, I hoped this pursuit would increase my speed on level 5 enough to break through the 30-minute barrier. And I was right. On June the 23rd, all of my practice fell into place and I had an amazing run. Not just breaking the 30-minute mark, but smashing it. 29:26 was the time I set, and that is where the world record stands today. If you would like to know more, check out my video of this run, which includes a detailed commentary on the various aspects of the speedrun. Shoutouts also to Raflik, who became the second person to achieve a sub 30, setting a 29:57 a few weeks later. Armed with my new skills, I set off to Adelaide to showcase the World's Hardest Game 3 Any% in the Australian Speedrunning Marathon 2022. This was an awesome event, and I got to meet with legendary World's Hardest Gamer HS Blue in person for the first time. He agreed to join me on the couch and co-commentate for my World's Hardest Game 3 run, which was a lot of fun. It should also be noted during this time, Raflik had been dominating ILs for the early levels. On April 29th, Raflik set a 1:34 in level 1. This record has been reducing second by second since Frames 1:38 in 2021. The 1:34 strategy requires 2 frame-perfect enemy clips, as well as the double clip strategy in 1v1. Needless to say, this category is incredibly optimized, but there are still more enemy clips that could be used to save time. On July the 4th, Raflik set a 2:41 in level 2, another very optimized level. Apart from a small mishap in 2A1, this speedrun showcases flawless execution of some very difficult routes, particularly the bottom section of 2A2. Raflik has also been working on level 3. His first world record was a 5:34 back in February. After several improvements, he set a 4:40 on August 6th, which is where the record stands today. In total, Raflik saved more than a minute compared to my 5:43 from 2019. He did this by basically turning over every room until he could squeeze out the fastest possible route. That being said, his 4:40 is not perfect, and there is still time that can be saved here. Also in 2022, I released the final installments in my Fewer Checkpoints series for the World's Hardest Game 3, Fewer Checkpoints 4 and Fewer Checkpoints 5. After completing Fewer Checkpoints 5, I released a hardcore mod, which replicates the conditions of hardcore mode from the World's Hardest Game 4 in the World's Hardest Game 3. However, no one has completed this mod yet, and it will probably be quite some time before they do, since level 4 has never been completed deathless. On July 18, Frames published a 14:24 glitched run of the World's Hardest Game 4. This is the first time anyone has done a serious attempt at an optimized glitched run of the World's Hardest Game 4. If you're not aware, the World's Hardest Game 4 has many game-breaking glitches that allow you to save time, most notably cutscene storage and the save warp glitch, which together allow you to bypass the coin doors in 4 out of the 5 levels. I highly recommend you check out Frame's video since it includes a well-made commentary which explains exactly what is going on at each moment of the run, and the glitches that were used to make it happen. On the glitchless side of things, 2 new runners joined the Any% leaderboards. On the 30th of August, Videocake achieved a 39:36. With this submission, Videocake became the 4th ever person to have submissions for the main category of all 4 games, the others being Jacob, Vowels, and myself. The other new runner was Victor GD. However, although he submitted his runs to the leaderboards, speedrunning wasn't Victor's primary objective. He was focused on reducing deaths. since he wanted to be the first person to complete the World's Hardest Game 4 Hardcore mode. In Hardcore mode, all the checkpoints in each level are removed, so any death will send the player back to the start of that level, losing all the coins, diamonds, and keys they have collected. Because of the brutal nature of this challenge, it had not been attempted by many, and those that did attempt it got stuck, usually on level 4 where the difficulty becomes much higher. However, Victor was determined to complete the challenge, and on the 27th of August, he did just that. There is no video of this run, which took over an hour and included 15 deaths, but we do have video of one of Victor's later completions of Hardcore mode from December 28th, which had just one death in level 4. This begged the question, could the entire game be beaten deathless? Indeed it could. On the very last day of the year, another deathless challenge was complete, and Victor's speedrun time of 30 minutes and 24 seconds was enough to put him in 3rd place. As of the date of recording, the World's Hardest Game 3 is the only game that hasn't been beaten deathless. This was a milestone that was long considered impossible, but now that the World's Hardest Game 2 and the World's Hardest Game 4 have toppled, it seems only a matter of time before someone tackles the World's Hardest Game 3 deathless. Another exciting development in the World's Hardest Game 4 was the ability to modify the game. If you've followed my videos, you know I've made various mods of the World's Hardest Game 1, 2, and 3, and so have many other people. But for a long time, there was a big restriction on modding the World's Hardest Game 4, which meant only the sprites could be modified. Any attempt to modify the code would make the game crash instantly upon launch. In April, I discovered the reason for this bug was a compilation error in JPEXS that deleted the code from one of the functions in the game. By rewriting this function, I was able to fix the problem and modify the game, leading to the World's Hardest Game 4 practice mod and the frame counter mod. With practice mod in hand, I set out to claim the 100% world record, achieving a 53.09 on December 8th, beating Val's 59.40 from 2021. The 100% category requires the runner to collect all keys and paints in every level. Because the World's Hardest Game 4 has 9 collectible paints and lots of optional keys, the 100% category is a fair bit longer than any percent, but most of the time difference is because it is less optimized. After a week of practice and several PBs, I was able to lower the record down to 43.17. However, this run is still far from perfect. At least 5 to 10 minutes can be saved with better routes and less deaths. If you're wondering why I took the time to learn the 100% category for this game, the reason will soon become apparent. On the 18th of December, I began live streaming attempts for an epic challenge. To beat the World's Hardest Game 1, the World's Hardest Game 2, the World's Hardest Game 2.1, the World's Hardest Game 3 any percent, the World's Hardest Game 3 100%, the World's Hardest Game 4 any percent, and the World's Hardest Game 4 100% in one sitting. This challenge, which I call Heptalogy, tests the player's competency on the 7 major categories of the World's Hardest Game series, similar to the Quadfecta speedrun, but including the 100% categories as well. Speaking of Quadfecta, I happened to beat my Quadfecta PB within this run. Early in 2022, I had made some attempts at a sub-90 Quadfecta time. I was able to lower the record to 1 hour and 33 minutes, but the 90-minute mark still eluded me. This run actually could have been sub-90 if not for a death at the very end of the World's Hardest Game 4, which sent me back 5 rooms. When it came to my Heptalogy run in December, I was much more experienced in the World's Hardest Game 3, and I didn't die to the final rooms of the World's Hardest Game 4, so I set a new Quadfecta PB of 1 hour, 28 minutes, and 47 seconds. Another year goes by and the custom level community is thriving. Abho's editor, which first became popular in 2021, continues to be the main editor used in the community. In early 2022, some new features were added like the white theme and timescale assist. Later, Abho released the World's Hardest Game Edit 2, which included the ability to make multi-area levels, a feature highly anticipated by the community. However, this version is still in development, so most levels are still made for the World's Hardest Game Edit 1. In May, Stevie himself, the creator of the World's Hardest Game series, joined the custom level community and posted a video of himself playing some levels in Abho's editor. Historically, Stevie has not participated in the Discord server much, so it was nice to see him engage with the community and try out their latest creations. It's also interesting to see, for the first time, Stevie playing levels that were not designed by himself. I highly recommend you check out the full video. In October, Frost and David Conkow hosted a special event for custom levels. The event was called WHG Tober, inspired by Inktober, and every day for the month of October, a new prompt was posted, designed to serve as a source of inspiration for new levels. Megalord was the only creator to cover every prompt, but many people participated across the 31-day event, and in total, 105 levels were made. There were hundreds of levels that were created in 2022, so I cannot possibly cover all of them, but one that stood out to me was Hall of Tortured Souls, a 14-player collaboration that was released on November 1st. The level features 23 rooms of varying difficulty, some being moderately challenging and others being very difficult. If you want to find levels to play, there are various lists maintained by members of the community that rank levels by difficulty. Just join the Discord server to get started. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'm sorry it was quite a while before it came out. 2022 was a crazy year, and it took me a long time to sort through all the insane discoveries and achievements that happened during the year. I tried to tell the story of each accomplishment in an accurate and engaging way, but that took a lot of time. Thank you for understanding. Also, I didn't have time to cover everything that happened in the year, so I apologize if you feel left out. If you enjoyed the music, be sure to check out my remix list linked in the description. Here's to another great year.
Oh my fucking god! Oh my fucking god! Yes! Sir! Yes! 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 Yes!
Yes! Yes! Let's go!
Yeah, baby! Oh, I nearly let go of left.